lesson 32, Joseph and his brothers. Okay, looks like you all have Bible out there, Genesis chapter 37. Okay. Let's do. Okay, and have your maps too handy, because we're going to see where some movement is going on. So, chapter 37, let's start here at verse 1. It says, "And Jacob dwelt in the land wherein his father was a stranger, in the land of Canaan." So, his father Isaac. "These are the generations of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brethren. And the lad was with the sons of Bilhah, and with the sons of Zilpah, his father's wife. And Joseph brought unto his father their evil report. Now Israel," meaning Jacob, "loved Joseph more than all his children, because he was the son of his old age, and he made him a coat of many colors. And when his brethren saw that their father loved him more than all his brethren, they hated him and could not speak peaceably unto him." So we've got a few things to start out with here, okay, in this story. First of all, they live, our understanding is in the area of Mamre. So if you look on the map there, just west of the Dead Sea, we've got Mamre. That is where they are living. Okay? And Joseph, how old does the Bible say he is here? How many years old is he? Micah? He's 17 years old, and what is his calling? What is his job that his father has given him? Kenton? What is his calling? Joseph. Taking care of the sheep. He's out there caring for his father's sheep. Now it's interesting who he's caring for the sheep with this time. We know that the herds of Jacob were huge. He needed probably many men to watch over him, and his son are doing that. But who is he watching the flocks with here? What people is he doing that? Kenton.
Sons of Bilhah and Zilpah.
Dan and Naphtali, Gad and Asher. So these were the two concubines that had been given to Jacob. Jacob had married Leah, and Rachel, and then obviously when Rachel couldn't have children, she gave her handmaid to Jacob, and then Leah did the same. These are probably handmaids that were from an ungodly country, even though they had grown up in the house of Laban. We don't really see Laban as probably the best father figure, the best household to live in, as a very godly man. But so these were probably servants that were taken from ungodly countries, had ungodly upbringings, and probably were not very dedicated in their service of bringing up their children in the fear of the Lord. Now that was really ultimately, that weight falls to Jacob. He should have been doing that. He should have ensured that his children were walking in a way that was godly, walking in a way that was good, and if they were living in unrepentant sin, he should have pushed them out. But he didn't. But we see that these sons of Zilpah and Bilhah were evil. Now, let's not just say, well, Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah, those first four, the others of Leah, and they were not perfect. They were wicked as well, and we'll see how that is in this lesson here. Okay? So, those were some things. His brothers, we read here. Now, we read of this evil report, and Joseph brought to his father an evil report. When you first read that, you think, what kind of person is, if there's one word that we've used to describe Joseph, what would it be? Well, he's such a, what is that when you go run into mom and dad and tell them all about everyone else's sins? Logan?
Tattletale.
Yeah, we might say, oh, look at Joseph here, he's a tattletale. But that's not the case. Joseph isn't a tattletale here. Rather, the reputations, okay, the names by which the sons of Jacob were known were not good reputations. They weren't known as godly men living in this land who were wholesome, good men. Rather, they had earned a bad reputation. So we talk about, we too are surrounded by a cloud of witnesses here at Randolph, all the people that see us. And it's not that we want a good reputation for our own names, so they think we're so great and we're so good, but our reputation then reflects on God. And if we have a bad reputation and we give our neighbors or the people of Randolph something for them to laugh at us about, okay, then that also reflects on God and gives them something to laugh at God about. So our reputations are important. And the reputations of the sons of Jacob were wicked. They probably, if there were taverns, they were probably drinking in them. Maybe they were womanizing. Maybe they were stealing. Maybe they were using bad language. Maybe they were a rowdy bunch who didn't take care of whatever pasture lands they got into. Maybe when they would come upon a well, they'd push their way into the front to think they were more important than the others because their father had such large herds. We don't know specifics. But we do know that Joseph here is not running back to father to be a tattletale and saying, this is what I just saw Gad and Asher do, or this is just what I saw Dan and Naphtali do. No, rather what he is doing is he's going back to father, and he's giving his father a report saying, Father, as I pass through the towns and the villages, or as I sit by the wells and talk to other shepherds, they don't speak kindly of my brethren, your sons. They don't speak in a good manner about them. The report is often bad about how they behave and how they act. Father, this is not a good reflection on our Heavenly Father. This is not bringing God a good name. That's the kind of report that he's bringing back here. He's bringing back the reputation to his father so that he can know about them. So we see that. Now Joseph, we know he's a godly, righteous man. Okay? And the reason they bring this report back is if he was ungodly, he probably would have been joining in. Or if he was ungodly, he probably would have laughed and snickered at the reports and not told his father so that he could keep hearing more bad stories about them, right? You guys like to sometimes hear some stories of what Grandpa did when he was little, some of the trouble he got into, maybe Grandma, Mom, or Dad. You do! And that's what Joseph would have been like here if he was ungodly. But he loved the Lord, and he knew that a good reputation was something of value. And so he told his father. So you can see he's a godly man here. Okay? Now, because they knew their brother's disposition, and because he was godly, they hated him for that. Okay? They also hated him for another reason here in verse 4. What is the problem in verse 4? Why would the brothers of Joseph not be happy with him in verse 4? Micah?
Jacob gave him a horse.
What does that show about how Jacob feels towards Joseph?
That shows a friendliness.
It's foolishness, okay, on the part of a parent to show favoritism. To say, this is my favorite child, I'm going to give all the honor and glory and blessings to them. Okay? Now, it may be you have an older brother, and so mom and dad say, hey, I'm going to take older brother or sister to this place. You think, well, I would like to go. Or maybe they take younger brother and sister, and they say, well, you already went to this place when you were younger, now I'm going to take them here and give them a special. That is not what we're talking about here. We're talking about outright favoritism. Okay? Where day in and day out, all of the attention and all of the blessings, all the good things are given to one child. They always get more food. Okay? They always get a present and you get nothing. Okay? They always get to go with mom and dad somewhere and you never get to. Okay? That's foolishness, and and as we see that here, that foolishness only stirs up the anger of the hatred of those brothers. Okay? But here's where the hatred even increases more. Let's keep reading in the next few verses and see what happens. And Joseph dreamed a dream, and he told it his brethren, and they hated him yet the more. And he said unto them, Hear, I pray you, this dream which I have dreamed. For behold, we were binding sheaves in the field. What would be sheaves? We were binding sheaves in the field. Like wheat or hay. If you go out Amish country, you can still see that, right? Those tall stacks of wheat stacked up to dry. So they were stacking sheaves in the field. And lo, my sheaf, so the one that Joseph was making and tying into a bundle, my sheaf arose and also stood upright. So it stood up straight instead of leaning over like they tend to do. And behold, your sheaves stood round about, so they circled his sheaf and made obeisance to my sheaf. In other words, they bowed down to mine. And his brethren said to him, Shalt thou indeed reign over us? Or shalt thou indeed have dominion over us? And they hated him yet the more for his dreams and for his words. And he dreamed yet another dream, and told it his brother, and said, Behold, I have dreamed a dream more, and behold, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars made obeisance to me. So the sun, the moon, and the 11 stars all bowed down to him. And he told it to his father and to his brother, and his father rebuked him and said unto him, What is this dream that thou hast dreamed? Shall I and thy mother and thy brethren indeed come to bow down ourselves to thee to the earth? And his brethren envied him, but his father observed the saying. Okay, stop there. So, what happens in the life of Joseph only to make his brothers hate him even more? What happens, Colin?
He dreams another dream.
Yeah, he dreams some dreams. Not only does his father show him favoritism, but he has a dream. Ah, I have dreams. You have dreams. Back in the Bible times, a dream like this, it was obvious. Where did it come from? Colin?
God.
It came from God. Well known. We know Jacob had dreams, had visions. So that's kind of why it's maybe something to wonder about why his father kind of rebukes him. Okay? But it was known in those days that a dream like this was a special message from God. And it was not lost on his brothers that they realized that God had sent this dream to their young brother Joseph. And that what God had told him in those dreams would come true. They would make obeisance to him someday. At some day, he would rule over them and they would bow down to him. And they did not like that. Not only did their father show favoritism towards him, now he's telling us that we're going to bow down to him someday? No. No, that can't be. We're not going to. Okay, you can imagine them thinking in their heads, and they're filled with even more anger. There's hatred there. As long as we know that. That is the seed that has been sowed. These brothers hate Joseph. They're probably, in fact, happy to get out of the house, away from him, and go off to do their work in the fields. Verse 12, let's pick up the story there. And his brethren went to feed their father's flock in Shechem, and Israel said unto Joseph, Do not thy brethren feed the flock in Shechem? Come, and I will send thee unto them. And he said to him, Here am I. And he said to him, Go, I pray thee, see whether it be well with thy brethren, and well with the flocks, and bring me word again. So he sent him out of the vale of Hebron, so the valley, and he came to Shechem. And a certain man found him, and behold, he was wandering in the field, and the man asked him, saying, What seekest thou? And he said, I seek my brethren. Tell me, I pray thee, where they feed their flocks. The man said, They are departed hence, for I heard them say, Let us go to Dothan. And Joseph went after his brethren, and found them in Dothan. And when they saw him afar off, even before he came near unto them, they conspired against him to slay him. They wanted to murder him. And they said one to another, Behold, this dreamer cometh. Notice they only use his name. He's a dreamer. Come now, therefore, and let us slay him, and cast him into some pit, and we will say, Some evil beast hath devoured him, and we shall see what will become of his dreams. Reuben heard it, and he delivered him out of their hands, and said, Let us not kill him. And Reuben said unto them, Shed no blood, but cast him into this pit that is in the wilderness, and lay no hand upon him, that he might rid him out of their hands to deliver him to his father again. It came to pass, when Joseph was coming to his brethren, that they stripped Joseph of his coat of many colors that was upon him, and they took him and cast him into a pit, and the pit was empty, and there was no water in it. And they sat down to eat bread, and they lifted up their eyes and looked, and behold, a company of Ishmaelites came from Gilead with their camels, bearing spicery, balm, and myrrh, going to carry it down to Egypt. And Judah said unto his brethren, What profit is it if we slay our brother and conceal his blood? Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let not our hand be upon him, for he is our brother and our flesh. And his brethren were content. Then there passed by Midianites, merchantmen, and they drew and lifted up Joseph out of the pit, and sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver, and they brought Joseph into Egypt. Stop there a second. So, his brothers are upset with him with those dreams. They go out to take care of their father's flocks into far lands. You can see where Shechem is on that map. Okay, see where Shechem is. Okay. That's where they initially went. And why Jacob would send his son Joseph, who he knows that the 10 other brothers hate. Why he sends him out alone to his brethren to go report on them and find out what is going on, that's, we would almost say, foolishness. Why doesn't Jacob go out? Or why doesn't he send other servants, or at least send servants with Jacob? Or I mean Joseph. But he doesn't. He sends him out alone. And so Joseph begins to go, and he goes to Shechem looking for his brethren there. And he can't find them anywhere in the fields, in the valleys, in the mountains where he knows that they should be. And a man sees him wandering in the field there. Okay? And while he's wandering and seeing him wandering in the field, he must call him over and say, "Now, who are you looking for? What are you looking for, my boy?" And Joseph says, "Well, I'm looking for my brethren, the 10 sons of Jacob. Where be they? Where are they?" And this man tells him, "Well, I heard that they were going to go over to Dothan, up even further north, better pasture land or whatever." And you can see on your map there where Dothan is. Okay? And so Joseph now takes a little bit longer journey to go find his brethren, maybe another day of walking. And he goes, and he finally, from a far ways off, he can probably see his brethren in the flocks, and he recognizes them, and he begins to head towards them. Meanwhile, in the camp of those 10 brothers, they also can see Joseph coming from a far ways off. Maybe they recognize him by his coat of many colors, probably by his walk. "Here cometh this dreamer. Now that we're far away from home and away from Dad, and find anybody find, let's slay him. There's no witnesses here. No one can see. Let's all agree together. We all hate him. Father shows him too much favoritism. Let us kill him. Let us slay him, murder him, throw him into this pit in this land, leave him here for the wild beasts to eat him. We'll take his coat of many colors and spread some blood, and we can tell a lie to our father about what has happened to him." That is their plan. That's what they would like to do. But one brother steps forward to kind of stop the plan. Who is that? Which brother stops forward? Jaden? Reuben steps forward. Right? He wasn't willing to do this. His hatred wasn't as deep as his brother. He still cared for his brother. He knew it was wrong. He knew it was wrong, and so he convinces them, "Let us not slay him. Rather, here's this pit. Let us throw him in that pit. Maybe we'll figure out something to do with him later." And Reuben thinks in his mind, "I will somehow deliver him out of this pit and this situation and get him back to father and tell him don't ever come out here again by himself. They'll surely put him to death." But he knows that, he thinks this is a way that I can deliver him and give him back to my father so that he doesn't die. Okay? So that's what Reuben is thinking. So, here comes Joseph. You can imagine him, "Hello, brothers," and "Hello, everything." But they don't greet him very kindly. Okay? Said they stripped Joseph out of his coat. They took him and cast him in the pit. So they took his coat off him. They threw him down into the pit that was empty. And they there began to eat. And you can imagine Joseph being hungry, thirsty, and now afraid, down in that pit. Thinking, "Come on, brothers, it's just a joke. Take me out now, I get it. You're jealous of my coat, I'm sorry." But none of them comes to the pit, right, to take him out. And he probably becomes more and more worried. The brothers, meanwhile, are sitting up there having a nice meal amongst themselves, saying, finally we're rid of this fellow. Maybe many of them still talking among themselves about how they're going to kill him or conspire. Reuben at some point must leave, maybe to go to tend to some of his herds or go to do something. But anyways, those brethren are all sitting there. And as they're sitting there, they begin to see a large caravan. Now they know this type of caravan that's coming is a caravan that's heading down to another land, to Egypt. It's a caravan of buyers and sellers. And they realize, hey, we could kill our brother, leave him dead in that pit, and we would gain nothing by it. We'd come out of it nothing ahead other than being rid of him. Why don't we, one of them must have suggested, why don't we instead haul him out of that pit and we'll sell him to the Ishmaelites that are coming by here. That way, not only will we be rid of them, maybe he thinks it won't have the guilt of his blood on my conscience, but also we'll gain some monetary riches from him. We can gain something by getting rid of our brother rather than just murdering him. And so, as the Ishmaelites come by, they pull him out of the pit. And imagine him thinking, finally, I'm getting out. Maybe they probably bound him right away, tied him up. And when the Ishmaelites come, he's sold to those Ishmaelites. Sold for money. So they profit from his sale. They are rid of him, they think. And this is exactly what they wanted. What they didn't realize is who was really in control of all of this going on. Who was watching over everything that they were doing and was in control of every one of their actions. Jen? God directed those Ishmaelites to come by at just the right time. God had directed Reuben to make sure that they weren't dead, that they didn't kill him. So, that's what we see there. Those Ishmaelites, obviously descendants of Ishmael, take him. 20 pieces of silver he sold for. And let's pick it up at verse 29. What happens now? So he sold. The Ishmaelites begin to go away. We can imagine the tears streaming down Joseph's eyes, now knowing what is happening. Is he worried? Is he concerned? Trusting in God here? He may have all of those thoughts and feelings going through his head, but you can imagine his sadness. Verse 29, and Reuben returned unto the pit. So he went to go look for his brother. Behold, Joseph was not in the pit, and he rent his clothes. He probably was afraid that they had killed him, and he returned unto his brother and said, the child is not. And I, whither shall I go? And they took Joseph's coat and killed a kid of the goats, and dipped the coat in the blood, and they sent the coat of many colors, and they brought it to their father, and said, this have we found. Now know whether it be thy son's coat or no. And he said, and he knew it, and said, it is my son's coat, an evil beast hath devoured him. Joseph is without doubt rent in pieces. And Jacob rent his clothes, and put sackcloth upon his loins, and mourned for his son many days. And all his sons and all his daughters rose up to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted. And he said, for I will go down into the grave unto my son mourning. Thus his father wept for him. And the Midianites sold him into Egypt unto Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh's, and a captain of the guard. Reuben comes back. Too late. He's not there in time to be able to rescue his brother. Rents his clothes, probably thinking the worst, that they've killed him. Finds out that they sold him just as bad. He can't bring him back to his father. Probably feels terrible guilt at what has happened, at what his brother's done. But he will respect them in the sense that he will not tell his father the truth. And that too is sin. All of these men here are sinning by hiding this from their father. Instead, they take a goat from their own flocks, they kill it, you eat the meat, but they take the blood and they cover the coat and probably tear it and rip it. And when they come to father, they tell him, here, father, look, on our way back home, we found this coat. It was laying on the ground. It was bloodied and torn. What do you think, father? And Jacob looks at it and says, yes, this is Joseph's coat that I gave him, and he weeps. And no matter how many people come in to comfort him, he cannot be comforted. He continues to weep and live a life of misery for years. This too is bad, but one loses a child, there is nothing that can replace it. There will always be a hollow part in their life. There will always be time for sadness. But he needs to also make sure that he can go on. But anyways, we see there that Joseph was sold into Egypt. All throughout this, though, again, remember, although this looks bad and appears bad, it is all the plan of God. God is working here. God is controlling all the actions of all the brethren in this situation. Okay? And we'll see how God continues that tomorrow with the lesson of how Joseph lives, well, in Potiphar's house there down in Egypt.